Welcome back, podcast friends. In this episode, I want to talk about stress because, as with everything, a little bit of something is good, but you can always have too much of a good thing. Now, stress is one of those. You want stress. Stress is your way of dealing with crisis. It's put your brain in survival mode, which is exactly what you want to do. If there's a situation that comes up, you want to be prepared to handle that situation. But as you see through this podcast, a little bit is good and it helps get you out of a situation. But when you're chronically stressed, that totally starts tearing your body up all over the place. And that's why I want you to see how good stress and bad stress, how they're similar and how they're different. So, the first thing, when we talk about stress, there's actually two different parts. There's the immediate part. As soon as you feel stressed, your brain causes a release of adrenaline. So, most people know what the term adrenaline is. Another name for adrenaline is epinephrine. And there's also noradrenaline or norepinephrine. So anytime I say epinephrine or adrenaline, it means the exact same thing. And there's actually two different parts of the whole stress mechanism. There's an immediate part, and then there's a part that comes out about 10 seconds later that helps maintain the things that are going on during stress to keep you focused. So the first thing is the adrenaline. And just so you know, all this, and I'm going to have to get deep into physiology. I'm not going to get real deep. All just a general overcast of what I'm saying. An overview is there are two parts in the brain, the hypothalamus and the pituitary. And those help with the long-term stress. And the way they do is the major gland that we're talking about is called an adrenal gland. It's called adrenal because it's on top of your kidneys. And kidneys, another name for kidney is renal. So you have a kidney on both sides down in your abdomen. They're located in the low back on both sides of your body. And that's the kidneys. On top of that kidney is an adrenal gland. The adrenal gland has the outside of it, which is called the cortex. And then there's the inside of it called the medulla. Okay, so there's the adrenal medulla and adrenal cortex. The reason why I need to know that is because the immediate response first is going to be getting adrenaline out of the adrenal medulla, the middle part of the adrenal gland. But cortisol, the stress hormone that starts happening later, it's called cortisol because it comes from the adrenal cortex, which is the outer side of the adrenal gland. So that's what I'm going to explain to you, how epinephrine or adrenaline starts real quick, and then about 10 seconds later, that's when you get your cortisol, and I'll explain what's going on. So first, there's what's called the autonomic nervous system. So you have a skeletal nervous system, and that's where you have control over it. Kicking a ball or catching a ball or lifting your arms or anything that you do with your muscles, you can control that with your mind. You determine what goes on. Okay, that's going to be the skeletal muscle system. But then you have the autonomic nervous system. The autonomic nervous system is one that you do not control. It just goes on without you even knowing. That's your brain functioning. That's your heart beating. That's your lungs breathing. That's your blood vessels pulsating. That's your intestines doing peristalsis, getting food through it. These are all things that just go on without you knowing it. And there's two different parts of the autonomic nervous system. There's the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. The way you can remember this is think of sympathetic. That is the nervous system that feels sorry for you. So it's wanting to get you out of a stressful situation. So just think like in a fight or flight situation, think of what's going on. So you're scared. Your pupils are dilated. Your breathing rate goes up. Your heart rate goes up. The blood shunts away from your gut to your muscles so you can fight, flight, and take care of whatever. But then after that, after about 10 seconds, now your cortisol comes in and that starts having another effect. But what's supposed to happen is you take care of this stressor and then everything comes back down. Okay. So that's what's going on is you have the sympathetic system. And that is when your brain, say you come across a stressor, say you're driving down the road and the car in front of you has a wreck. Okay. And it's a pretty bad wreck. Immediately, okay, your autonomic nervous system kicks in. Okay, this one that you don't control anything about it. And remember, sympathetic is the one that feels sorry for you. Parasympathetic is the one that relaxes you. That's the exact opposite. That's when your pupils constrict down and your breathing rate slows down, your heart rate slows down, and blood shunts back to the GI tract for digesting food. So that's the parasympathetic. So we're going to talk about the sympathetic right now because that's where the stress and everything comes in. So you're driving down the road, you see a wreck. immediately your body, your brain senses that there is a stressor. You've got to do something. So what happens is it sends a message to the adrenal medulla, and that releases the epinephrine. Once the epinephrine comes out, okay, that's when you get all the things like I just said. That's when your heart rate increases, respiratory rate increases, you shunt your blood, and you are ready to attack. That's what happens first. And that's what goes on with the adrenaline. But about 10 seconds later, now there's a signal, your hypothalamus in the brain, it recognizes that there's a stress. So the hypothalamus releases a hormone. It's called corticotropic releasing hormone. Again, so adrenal cortex, cortisol, these are all corts. So the hypothalamus detects it, and it sends the corticotropic releasing hormone to the pituitary, which is a little pea-sized gland up in the brain. The pituitary sends out what's called adrenocorticotropic hormone, because it's going to go down to the adrenal gland, only it's going to stimulate the cortex. And that's where cortisol is. And that's your main stress hormone. And again, this happens about 10 seconds after the adrenaline was released. But when you stimulate cortisol, this is like your built-in stress manager. This is what helps you respond to things, adjust to change. And that's what you want to happen. So you have the adrenaline happens first, then you have the HPA axis, which is the hypothalamus, pituitary, and adrenal cortex. And what this does is this keeps your energy high. This keeps your energy high for a long time. You can focus a lot better. So you see the wreck, you get out. First thing is you see the wreck, and all of a sudden your heart starts pumping, breathing rate. You pull the car over, jump out of the car. You go over there, and now you have to start assessing the situation. So this is where now cortisol is kicked in. So cortisol is going to help. It gives you energy, alertness, and focus. So you're looking around, you're seeing where, if there's anybody that needs major attention, there's a major bleed that needs to stop, or whatever. You understand what's going on. But the cortisol, this helps you keep focused and keep alert the whole time. And the cortisol, this also, after the stress is over, cortisol also is what has your brain slow down. It's like a shut-off valve, which is exactly what you really want to do. You want to shut everything down because you're never supposed to be stressed continuously. That does a whole different thing. So what does cortisol do? So you've got this stressor, you've got the cortisol being released. The cortisol, it mainly acts on the liver, okay? And its main purpose is to put sugar, glucose, into your blood. And there's two ways to do this, because remember, you were never, ever supposed to use glucose for your all-day energy source like we are doing nowadays. Ever since the food companies have come out here and with all their crud, horrible, toxic sludge as frankenfood, everybody's eating that constantly. You constantly are eating the glucose. The only way your blood glucose goes up is because you eat it, or you're in a stress situation that causes the glucose from your liver to get into the blood. And so that's what I'm going to explain to you. So this is what's supposed to happen. So the cortisol goes to the liver, and there's two different forms. Your liver has stored glucose called glycogen. Remember, I've talked about that? It's like little glucose bricks called glycogen. 10% of your liver is this glycogen stores. Not very much. Okay, that's only about 100 grams, about 400 calories. That's all you have in your liver for your glucose stores. In your blood, if I take all the blood out of your body, take all that glucose out of your blood, if you're normal, if you have a fasting glucose of 80 to 100, if I take that glucose out of your blood, it only comes about 2 teaspoons of sugar. That's it. Okay, you do not have very much sugar. And since glucose is supposed to be your energy source for fight or flight, then that's what cortisol does. So first, it causes the glycogen stores in your liver. It causes those to break down, those glucose bricks break down and put glucose into your blood. Okay, because you're gonna need that quick energy. You got to respond quickly. The other thing it does, remember, the reason I said you never ever have to eat a plant-based food, because all plant-based foods are carbohydrates. All carbohydrates have glucose in them. All of them do. Okay, the animal-based products don't. And again, I'm not about fruits and vegetables. I'm not talking about that, although they do have glucose and some have more than others. So you're going to have to assess what your own health is as far as what you're going to eat. I'm mainly talking about man-made food, everything in a box, bottle, bag, can, all that kind of stuff. Stay away from that. But the reason I can say that is because, one, you don't have very much glucose in your body, period. But your body can make all the glucose it needs out of fat and also out of protein. Okay. That's called gluconeogenesis. It means making glucose, brand new glucose, that's the neo, out of something, out of a non carbohydrate source, which is your fat and your protein. So cortisol causes your liver to have gluconeogenesis, where it makes new glucose from these non carbohydrate sources, protein and fat, and then also cause glycogenolysis. And that means lysis or breaking down of glycogen. Okay, so that's what cortisol does. Glycogenolysis breaks down your glucose brick to glucose, and gluconeogenesis means it makes glucose out of the protein and fat that's available. So that's how your cortisol gets this sugar into your blood that gives you quick, fast energy. But what you're supposed to do is have the stress, take care of the stress. So now you've got everybody taken care of that was in the car wreck. You're waiting for the first responders to come. They finally show up. They take care of everything from there. And now you can just relax. And now all of a sudden you can feel everything switching. Your adrenaline's gone down. Your cortisol is starting to go back down. And you start to feel relaxed again. And this is what you're supposed to be doing. However, if you do not do this, if you do not learn to deal with the stress and the stress continues to go, this is when you have other issues. Oh, another thing I want to make sure that you realize, cortisol is actually a little bit of stress is actually very good for your body. It puts your body into maintenance, and it can do things. It can control inflammation if you're inflamed when you're in stress. And that's why if you've ever heard of anybody taking these cold water plunges or baths, either getting down and soaking themselves in this ice water or turning the shower down all the way as cold as it can before you get out of the shower. Things like that, what that does, it puts your body in a stress mode. And when you're in stress mode, it's just like having the adrenaline. You start thinking clear, you get more brain flow. You change white fat, which is a storage fat, over to brown fat, which is an energy fat. You start controlling inflammation. Cortisol actually is an anti-inflammatory for a little while also. It controls your blood pressure. It controls your water balance. It controls your salt balance. So cortisol does a lot of things if it's in short burst. So short burst cortisol, having your stress levels go up for short burst is good. What's bad is when you keep this going all the time. That's what we're going to be talking about. And your cortisol normally has a daily rhythm. And this is important also. Your body naturally, as you wake up in the mornings, right before you wake up, your body naturally, it secretes cortisol when you're getting ready to wake up. And that's your body's way of helping you get up, wake up, get out of bed. You're going from sleeping to now you have to get up and go start moving around. So that's cortisol that's being released in the morning as it goes from dark to light. Cortisol gets released. And that gets you up. And like I said, and that's why they say also that if you want to working out the first thing in the morning, the first 1 to 3 hours after you get up really is a good time because you've already got your cortisol up. You're already stimulated in the way that you want to do. So you already have the energy ready to go for whatever the stress or whatever, working out or whatever you're going to do. As the day goes on, those cortisol levels are dropping down. When it gets to night, when it shifts from daylight over to darkness, that's when melatonin is what's kicked in. And that's what helps you get to sleep at night and stay to sleep at night. So that's why if you're having trouble sleeping, another good thing, one is wake up in the morning, okay? Go outside, walk, watch the sun come up. And as you watch the sun come up, that starts setting your circadian rhythm. And that's what starts getting your cortisol, starts getting that started released. As you go through, if you can walk again at night, then you can watch the sun go down, and that's going to help stimulate your melatonin and help get you to sleep. That's why they say don't watch any blue light, don't watch television, don't listen to things, don't do anything stimulating and bright lights when you're trying to go to sleep because you're going to throw that system off and your melatonin isn't going to kick in. So that's why you want to, if you're going to, instead of watching a movie, you could read a book or something like that. Just do it where you're not putting light into your eyes because that's going to mess up their circadian rhythm. Okay. So that's something important to know also, that your body naturally secretes cortisol every single day in the morning when you wake up. But what I'm worried about is the people who are in constant stress for whatever. Everybody has all kinds of stressors, and you really don't have to. People have been through horrible things. I totally understand that. But you've got to be able to figure out a way to deal with those without using medication if you can. Just remember, all medication has multiple, like we're talking 30, 40, 50 more adverse effects or harmful effects that the drugs do. So they may fix one thing, but they mess up a lot of other things. So if you can learn how to manage stress, how to deal with stress in a natural way, you're going to be so much better off. And also, if you start relying on a medication, all of a sudden, say you don't have your medication, you're stressed out. Now, what are you going to do? Now you're even more stressed because you got to figure out how to get some medication. To where if you'd learn the techniques on how to calm yourself down, and there's so many of them, there's so many different things out there. Meditation is a huge one that a lot of people use, and they say it just works wonders. Just being able to learn how to meditate and control your mind when stressful situations comes up. And that's a whole nother topic, and that's out of my realm. So I won't even be talking about stuff like that, chronic stress. But if you do have chronic stress for whatever reason, please research all the natural ways that you can actually learn to calm yourself down, and you will be so much better for it, because medication is never the way to take care of this. So what happens when you are under constant stress? Acute stress, we've already talked about that. You get your adrenaline, then you get your HPA axis, you get your cortisol release, then puts glucose in your blood, makes you do the fight or flight. Then you come back down. That's normal. That's great. That's healthy. That's how your body survives. That's a body's protective mechanism. Now, when you are stressed all the time, this constant stress, it actually wears you down. You become extremely fatigued. You have anxiety, depression, weight gain comes along with that a lot, reduced immunity. So a little bit of cortisol actually helps with your immune system, but when you have your cortisol going all the time, it actually reduces your immunity, and you're going to be more apt to have infections. So there's two different things. You can have too much cortisol, or you can have too little cortisol. So when you have high cortisol levels, when you just automatically always have high cortisol levels for whatever reason, this is called hypercortisolism. It just means your cortisol levels are high in your blood. So hypercortisolism, or another name for that is Cushing's syndrome, if you've ever heard of Cushing's syndrome. And this is when you get all kinds of things. When you have Cushing's syndrome, when you have too much cortisol being stimulated all the time, for whatever reason, maybe it's a stressor you've had in the past that you can't get over with, you can't have it figured out how to deal with that yet, or you're in a stressful situation now and you're wanting to learn how to deal with this. But this is when you start getting weight gain. And a lot of it, a real common one is around the face. It's called a moon face. You get this big rounded face when you're producing cortisol all the time. You get a moon face. You get increased fat around your abdomen, your chest, and your upper back. When you sit in the upper back, that's, if you've ever heard of buffalo hump, a lot of people, they'll get buffalo hump because of this overstimulation of cortisol, and it puts fat up around the back. And then they're also going to have like relatively thin arms and legs. This rounded face, besides this flush rounded face, you'll also get these pink or purple dark stretch marks, and that goes all over the skin. You can get these stretch marks on the abdomen, on the thighs, on the breasts, underarms. These are, when you see these streak marks, that's what they are. They're just stretch marks, and they're dark pink, dark purple. This is another sign of hypercortisolism. It also causes your skin to become very thin, and you bruise easier, and you have a lot harder time with healing wounds. So if your wounds are taking a long time to heal, that could be because you're producing too much cortisol all the time. Then you'll also get muscle weakness, mainly in the arms and the legs, mood changes, irritability, anxiety, depression, difficulty concentrating. Remember, cortisol at first, it actually increases your focus, increases your concentration, could deal with the stress. But when you do that over and over every day, all day long, you never deal with the stress, then that actually makes it where you actually think less clearly. You're not focused. You're kind of all over the board in your thoughts. And also, it's going to increase your blood pressure, which also increases your headaches. So if you're stressed all the time and you have headaches, that could be because of cortisol that's causing high blood pressure, and that's causing those headaches. So again, instead of taking a medication for a headache, learn how to take care of the stress and lower your stress level. A lot of people also get increased acne, and they get facial and body hair, especially in women. It's called hirsutism. But you start getting a lot of hair around your face and abdomen. So this is another thing of high cortisol. It also, in women, you can have irregular or stopped menstrual periods. So if you aren't towards the end of your menstrual period and you start having issues with bleeding, then this also could be because of stress and have hypercortisolism. And so you're going to need to figure that out. It also, you tend to have low sex drive in both men and women. They get lower sex drive, and there's also kind of fertility problems. Like I said, you get fatigue, you have sleep disturbances, you tend to be awake a lot at night because, again, cortisol is trying to stimulate you. So it's trying to keep you awake, but yet you're wearing your body out. So you fall asleep and wake up and fall asleep while your body adjusts to all this. It also, in children, you can also get growth retardation and obesity. So if kids are stressed out all the time, you may see them a little bit shorter in stature. It also increases your thirst, it increases urination and bone loss. So if you have fractures, bone loss, also when you have high cortisol levels, it tends to leach the calcium out of your bones. So you start getting bone loss. But high cortisol levels over a prolonged period of time, when you do this for long periods of time, it actually goes into disease states. So when you're stressed all this time, this has a lot to do. Remember, that's putting inflammation in your body now. And when you're stressed and you're inflamed, that's going to make your insulin resistance even worse. And so this is going to bring on your diabetes. Remember, diabetes is not a problem of too high blood glucose. That's a symptom. It's a problem of too high insulin. And that's what, when you're stressed all the time and you're putting this glucose in the blood system all the time and your insulin levels are high all the time, then that makes you insulin resistant also. So you can actually end up with diabetes just from being stressed all the time. But again, remember, that's the stress because you're messing with the insulin levels, causing insulin resistance. But still, the only way you're getting high glucose in your blood is because you're eating it, except for these glycogen stores that the cortisol keeps bringing out. So a little bit of stress is fine. Long-term is not fine. And again, this also causes weakening immune function. But there's also another place when your cortisol levels are low, and this is called Addison's disease or adrenal insufficiency, when you're trying to stimulate your adrenal cortex, but the cortisol levels still aren't coming down. They're very low. And this is when you get fatigue, you get muscle weakness. Remember, cortisol helps with the fight or flight. So everything, you're all excited. You have anxiety, your pupils are dilated, your respirations are higher, your breathing rate your heart rate's higher, all that. When you're low, you're going to have the opposite. So this is when you're going to be fatigued. You're going to have muscle weakness. You're going to have weight loss. You're going to have low blood pressure instead of high blood pressure. In fact, you have to be careful because if you're low on cortisol and your blood pressure is low, that's going to one of the leading reasons why people have dizziness, and they also fall down. And if you fall down, now you got to worry about what happens after you hit the ground and what kind of health status you're in for that. There's still mood changes and there's still depression. So depression, you can get the depression with either high or low, but the main thing is learn how to deal with the depression. And you really need to do it without medication. If there's any way you can do that without medication, you do find the natural way, which in most situations there is. I think the drug companies have done a fantastic job of making everybody think that everybody needs to be on medication. And if you have any adverse effects, then just put on more medication. And that's why they're the $1 trillion business that they are. I'm here to say that you do not want to be in that system, because once you do, you just keep getting more and more adverse effects, that they have more and more drugs to treat, and it just goes down, spirals down. So please try to take care of these stressful situations a normal way, whatever you can do. And again, that's beyond what I'm going to be talking about, because that's a whole nother field. But you will get fatigue, you will get weight loss, you will get low blood pressure, get the mood changes. You'll also get darkening of the skin and just different areas of the skin. And a lot of time, this also means that you're going to have low blood sugar and salt imbalance, again, because glucose or cortisol help with that blood sugar balance in your blood. So that's really, I wanted you to understand stress is great. Just acute stress, meaning stress that comes on quick and it goes off quick. That's what acute means. That kind of stress is great. That's good for your body. It stimulates your body. It's just like sprinting. Sprinting is good. If you walk every day, if you could just sprint for 10 seconds, just as fast as you can, sprint for 10 seconds, maybe do that 2-3 times in a day. And that's going to help you also. And these are all kinds of ways that you can stress your body, get your body used to. If you do have a stressful situation, you want to be physically able to handle that situation also. Say instead of a car wreck, you saw it fall over on somebody and you've got to go and you've got to lift that car. And we've all heard this, when your adrenaline is rushing, you can do crazy things. But the thing is, you want to get that stress over with, because chronic stress is very hard on your body. It's very hard on your brain. It's hard on your muscles. It's hard on your immune system. It's hard on your bones. It's hard on your organs. It's hard on everything. Don't underestimate the importance of learning how to take care of your stress. Realize there's a difference between good stress, acute stress, something comes on quick and then leaves, and then chronic stress when you haven't learned how to deal with the stresses of your life yet. And that's when you start running into all these other troubles, and it just called add an insult to injury. You just make things worse. And that's what I don't want for you guys. As you go through the different periods of your life and different stressors come on, please remember, use the acute stress, use it to your advantage, take care of whatever needs to be done. But when it's over, relax, go down to breathing slow, doing whatever you need to do to get that stress over. The better you learn how to deal with the stress without taking medication, the better off you're going to be. And so thank you again for listening to this podcast. And until next time, stay nourished and stay well. If you enjoyed this podcast, please hit the subscribe button below and be sure to tell someone else who may want to change their health path as well. And remember, if you would like to enroll in our new online Thrive Naturally Transformation course to help you reach your new improved health goal, to reverse type 2 diabetes, feel great, and get off medications, we are here to help. Just go to our website, drstevehewlett.com, and click on the Work With Us tab at the top of the page. We truly are here to help you get off medications and start living the vibrant, pain-free life that you would love to live.